My dad gave me 2 bits of advice regarding boats. You only get 2 good days with a boat, the day you buy it and the day you sell it. And also, there's nothing better than owning your own boat, and nothing worse than the guilt of not using it. These are old cliches, but they do illustrate how many boats are bought for the wrong reasons, on a whim, and without thinking about how much you'll actually use and enjoy it. The truth is, there is no ideal boat. Everything is a compromise. Everyone has a different reason, a different dream, and a different backstory. And to understand somebody else's choices, you need some context. So before you tell me I've bought the wrong boat, here's some context. I've sailed all my life in dinghies and small cruisers. I'm a qualified sailing instructor, a race coach and an RYA day skipper. The last decade or so has really been about dinghy racing. I've club raced in many boats, mainly lasers and a Phantom, but we spent most of our free time supporting the kids through various classes. They went through Oppies, Fevers, lasers and 420s. I've assisted in lots of nationals and a couple of world championships. We've been to Fremantle, Athens, Santander, Rhode Island, Lake Garda and many other fabulous places. It's been great fun. And I'm lucky enough to cruise and race on friends' yachts. We happily spectate at big sailing events, and we've chartered boats in the Med and in North America. And I've finally got over my snobbery of Greek flotilla sailing. Also, I have a checklist of adventures I want to choose over the next few years. But now the kids have gone through uni and started careers of their own. Dinghy racing is less attractive to my ageing frame, and I was looking for a small boat to potter around Torbay Inn. Something I could keep in the dinghy enclosure at Brixham Yacht Club, something I can self-launch, something easy to tow and do a bit of dinghy cruising. Maybe some fishing and the occasional night camping aboard. Now, after rationalising our flotilla, I have been left with a Phantom and a laser radial, neither of which are particularly suited for cruising. So the plan was to sell these 2 and buy something a little more roomy and sedate. I started to look at things like postboats, some of the Draskens, swallow yachts, particularly the Bay Raiders, and also a 17-foot Cornish Shrimper. The list is practically endless. I wasn't really looking at performance, but wanted something sturdy, seaworthy, and quite capable, and preferably with an outboard. About this time, a friend told me his dad was selling his Shrimper 19. Now, I've never sailed one, and my initial thought was, too big. I only want a large dinghy. And after a while I thought, well, 19 foot is only 2 foot longer than 17. And a cabin might be fun. And it's basically a big dinghy, but way more stable. My wife waded in then and started hinting that she might actually join me on it. And after a couple of more hours of wine-fueled enthusiasm, the plan was to take it off his hands, have a go at sailing it, and if it didn't fit, just move it on. These boats seem to hold their value really well and are relatively easy to sell. So my wife could now eagerly announce to people that we now had a yacht, but she struggled to explain to non-sailing friends what kind of a yacht we had. The best analogy she could come up with was that we had bought the yacht equivalent of a short wheelbase Land Rover Defender. I think this is quite an accurate comparison. After all, they're both venerable, old, British-built brands. Both are well regarded in their field and quite sought after, and theoretically you could go anywhere in either of them, but long distances are not likely to be comfortable nor fast. So that's how I came into the possession of Morning Vicar, a 1986 Mark I Cornish Shrimper 19, and these are my reflections on how reality has compared to expectation. Now, the Shrimper 19 is billed as a trailer sailor, so let's start there. I towed it down from the Midlands to the south coast. I have a single axle, fairly modern trailer, and my 2-litre Audi coped really well. Now this is a heavy boat at 1,500 kilograms. On paper she can be moved by most large cars, but in reality when full of kit and equipment it's probably right on the limit. My plan of keeping the boat in the dinghy enclosure in Brixham was clearly not going to work, so I found a berth at Galton Creek and took up a self-launch tariff. The plan was just to keep the boat on the trailer, fully rigged, and when I wanted to go sailing, launch her with the car, then park the trailer up and recover when I'd finished. This was all feasible and actually worked fine, but I found we were using her so much it was easier just to put her on a mooring or a pontoon, and that's where she now spends all of her summer. Despite her traditional looks, the Shrimper is mainly GRP. And the layup is really thick. In fact, the hull on these things is bulletproof. She's built like a tank, and this is the reason she's a really heavy boat. The advantage is that the thing that you hit is likely to come off worse than new. Don't underestimate the amount of time it takes to keep on top of the woodwork. The mast and spars need regular checking. But on the other hand, they're not really too big a job to tackle yourself. I'm 2 years into owning Vicar, but I'm still nowhere near finishing the list of jobs I made when I bought her. Remember, if you're buying an old boat, there will always be lots to do. Size-wise, she's a big dinghy, and the fact that I have the outboard version reinforces this idea. But most of her equipment and fittings are sourced from yacht suppliers, and are consequently a little over-specified for such a small vessel. This does add to the bomb-proof nature of the boat and is reassuringly over-engineered. But there are some parts that I have been gradually replacing with more modern materials. For instance, the mainsheet strop and the end of the boom was a steel cable and is now a simple loop of Dyneema. The boat is a high-peaked gaff sloop, so that means one headsail and a large main. Coming from a performance dinghy background, my expectations were not very high. I was used to high-pointing planing hulls, and the Shrimper is a big, heavy boat with a simple sail plan. The theoretical top speed on a displacement hull of this length is, I think, 5.6 knots, and you will not get it to sail much faster than this, however hard you try. Having said that, she will get up to 5 knots fairly easily. And she's definitely not underpowered. Regular subscribers will know that when going upwind, I like to put that first reef in the main at about 10 to 12 knots wind speed and keep the jib full. She likes to be sailed flat. I spent most of the first season trying to get her to point high like a dinghy, and it's remarkable how close to the wind you can actually get her, but she doesn't like it very much, and you will find yourself slowing down quite a lot. On flat water, she tacks happily through about 100 degrees. I almost always back the jib to get her through the wind a little bit faster. The centre plate is a flat, galvanised steel sheet. There's no profile to it and consequently no lift from it. The Shrimp has a reputation for weather helm. I think this is because most owners reef the jib first, which will unbalance the sail plan. And I don't think they reef early enough, which gives more heel and consequently more weather helm. Downwind, the Shrimper comes into its own. That high peak gaff is really efficient, and if you can pole out the jib, all the better. Lifting the centre plate really works well. There's more than enough in the long keel and skegs to keep her tracking straight. Overall, the Shrimper is an enjoyable and rewarding boat to sail as long as you're not looking for high-speed thrills. As I mentioned, Morning Vicar is the outboard version. This means you get an outboard in an inboard well, which is offset to starboard. This has a number of advantages. It means you get a massive cockpit. It's much lighter for towing, and it's a lot easier to get your engine serviced. In reality, though, I spent a lot more time motoring than I had envisaged, especially as I'm berthed halfway up a river, and there have been many times in the last couple of years when I had wished I'd bought an inboard engine. The outboard is very reliable and plenty powerful enough, but it is rather noisy and this gets tiresome after a while. The real issue is low speed and manoeuvrability. The combination of a heavy boat, the engine offset to starboard and a clockwise paddle wheel effect from the prop, together with a large rudder covering it, means turning to starboard in either direction from stopped is quite challenging. And manoeuvring around a busy marina requires planning and practice. When I bought Vicar, the fact that it had a cabin was a bonus really. Remember, I was looking for an open day boat which would be suitable for some camp cruising. With this in mind, the small cramped cabin of a Mark I Shrimper is absolutely palatial. The nights I've spent on her have been comfortable and it's more than adequate shelter on a rainy afternoon in summer. But this is not a liveaboard yacht and it doesn't pretend to be. For a day boat though, the cabin provides dry storage for as much kit as you want to bring, and a cosy refuge for disenchanted crew members who need some time alone. When I bought the boat, I was pleased to find an unused portable toilet in the cabin. 2 years later, it is still unused, and I have removed it. When needs must, a bucket does the same job. I really wanted a day sailor, and that's mainly how we use the boat. She's been up most of the little creeks in the Dart, as far as Totnes, and we're rather spoiled to have a lovely area to sail. Salcombe is a nice day sail away, as is Teignmouth in the other direction. And we've planned to extend our range to Plymouth, and perhaps even Weymouth, but haven't got around to it yet. We can get into many coves and bays that larger boats wouldn't venture, and creek crawling is a real treat in this boat. So the Shrimper isn't for everyone. If you want accommodation and long distance passages, well, look elsewhere. If you want a lightweight trailerable boat, there are many better alternatives. But there is a reason why the Cornish Shrimper, and for that matter the short wheelbase Land Rover Defender, is still so popular. Boats are always a compromise, and whilst there is no perfect boat, for me, at the moment, for what I wanted to do, well, this one works. Many thanks for watching, and as ever, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thank you very much.